Hello and welcome to another episode of Back Nine Report. Carlos Torres is on hand to help us break down the current PGA Tour season and provide his unique insight into the world of golf. Carlos, welcome back to the show.
Hey Fred, hi. It's great to be back with you. I mean, it's finally over 8 months really of golf, just wrapping up, and it was an amazing for the number one player in the world.
Yeah, Scottie kind of left no doubt who's kind of in charge, right? We saw a year this year, Carlos, that was almost, dare I say, Tiger-like. 7 wins plus that gold medal thing that he got in Paris. They hung around his neck. $62 million of total earnings coming off the $25 million bonus at the FedEx Cup. Um, does this remind you a little bit of Tiger, or what do you think?
Not since Tiger Woods was in the midst of his prime has one golfer really thoroughly dominated a golf during a calendar year. Like you mentioned, the FedEx Cup victory. Well, this is the first of his career. It's incredible. He mentioned it. He has been the player of the year the past 2 years, but he has not won FedEx Cup yet. But he did it finally and raised his winnings, including the bonus, to a whooping $62.3 million. Not that bad, you know. But he's in a great time right now with all the inflation of those prices right now, price that everybody wins now, right? With those signature events and all these things. So, but like Tiger did 17 years ago, he won 8 tournaments, including the Masters and the Players Championship. Um, he won 7 PGA Tour titles, which are the most since Tiger. You know who's very happy too? His caddy, Ted Scott. He will reap the rewards too, with a haul of over $5 million. Okay. When have you seen a caddy? I mean, he won more
That's
money
almost as
than,
much as you're going to make this year, Carlos.
oh, sure, sure. Yeah. I mean, cash back. But more than almost 100 players he made. But this is nothing to say of the other milestones of his this year. He had his first child, Bennett, born in May. Days later, it seems like the only thing that can stop Scotty these days is the police. Louisville police arrested him over a traffic let's call it miscommunication, right? Outside of the PGA Championship host venue. Of course, those charges were dismissed before the end of the month. But basically, that proved that old saying that you can't stop him, you can only contain him. You can only hope to contain him, right? Then in August, like you mentioned, he added that Olympic gold thing to his golf resume. Fred, to me, Scottie Scheffler has the resume and prize money this year to confirm that this year belonged to him and no one else, just like it did for Tiger in those prime years.
Wasn't it reassuring or soothing or calming to be able to just talk about the top story in golf, that Scottie Scheffler dominated? From the beginning of the year to the end of the year, it's all been about Scottie Scheffler. We're not talking about the LIV versus the PGA Tour. We're not talking about legal motions. We're not talking about lawsuits. We're not talking about Saudi Arabia money and all that stuff. We're just talking about really great golf. It was an outstanding season. And by pocketing that $25 million bonus, by winning the FedEx Cup playoffs, he just put a great big red ribbon on the whole season. Just like you say, I mean, we haven't seen anything like this since Tiger was dominating back in his heyday. So it's really nice to me to see that we've got a nice story that we can talk about golf and not talking about all the other stuff that goes outside the game. And you mentioned it, he won the Players, he won the Masters, 2 gigantic events. 6 of his wins came in signature events. So they were strong fields. They were the best fields of all year. So that seems like that's kind of what it takes to get him excited about playing well. He had a couple tournaments where he didn't putt that great early in the year, but I think he's kind of solved that. A lot of work earlier in the year on his putting stroke and what he's doing and that setup and all that kind of stuff. That seems to be working. You mentioned his caddy, Ted Scott, making over $5 million for the year. Ted Scott, I think, is a tremendous story as well, and has been a tremendous asset for Scottie Scheffler. What do you think?
Oh, he is, and definitely is like a calming, soothing presence for Scotty because even though where you see him, like you mentioned at the beginning of the year, he had some putting issues that he was even being thought of. Hey, is this really the world's number one with that putting? I don't know about that. But he did made it, and whenever he's been in trouble, he just has Ted there at his side, letting him know what he has to do. Hey, calm down. Let's look at it this way. And they have such a great relationship. I really think Ted has been instrumental in keeping Scotty where he has to be because he has this strong mind that really is the way that has been his cue to success. Really, the way that he's able to control his mind. He doesn't block the noise, but the way that he has said it is, I don't block the noise, but I try to think about something else. And Ted Scott has been really a good part of that.
A real good example of that, Carlos, is was number 8 on Sunday at East Lake. Scotty hit it up there in the bunker by the green, just left of the green, goes to chip out of the bunker and hits a shank. He shanks it, dead cold shanked it. The tour officials had just notified them that they were on the clock. They were playing too slow. There had been a big gap between them and the group ahead of them. So I think that rattled him a little bit. Then the shank. Now Ted's in his ear. Okay. He chips it back up there. Not a real good chip. Kind of rushed it. It looked like he didn't really go through his process. 2 putts, makes bogey. Good thing was it wasn't a double. Okay. You know, you and I, we hit a shank, we make double or triple. But he saves it because it's a short par 4. He's up by the green on his drive anyhow. Makes bogey. As they're walking to the next tee, you can see Ted in his ear just saying, hey, calm down, get back in the zone, get back to your process, think about what you're doing. That is the value of a really good caddy. And Ted Scott was a really good caddy for Bubba Watson for a long time. And you know what a head case Bubba is. And now he's doing a great job with Scottie Scheffler and really is instrumental in a lot of his success. So Scottie Scheffler, no doubt about it, it's been his year. Can he continue at this pace? We don't know. Let's talk just a little bit more about the FedEx Cup playoffs, Carlos. Was there anything that stood out to you during the playoffs that kind of caught your attention?
Not really. I mean, it's this format is I don't like it, but at the same time, it's like, how are we going to fix it, right? Because all this tinkering that they have been doing is to try to appease to the different things and all the rattle and the noise that every year, it should have been this way and it should have been this other way. And no, because the points are not the same way. But the reality is, and even Scottie Scheffler was saying it. I mean, he says, yeah, I understand it is what it is. It is not related to the season longs race. They are trying to keep the season's long race that somehow with that staggering of the
Staggering.
points, but
Yep.
it's really not it because you're really uh, getting the points to whoever wins those last three tournaments, especially the last two. Look at Keegan Bradley. With that win, he jumped all the way to number 4. Normally in the season long, if that would have been just all the season long, he wouldn't be that high just because of one win. So is it really? Are we talking about crowning? It was great that Scotty's the winner. I mean, he was the number one golfer in the world, but that's not the case all the time. It's not always that you see the world's number one winning this FedEx Cup. So are you really rewarding the whole season, everything that happened to the win? Yeah, I know that they were like, oh, Scotty would have won it like in August already. The beginning of August, it would have been over. Well, that's what it is. That's what really is. He was the best player all along, and that's
It
how
was
it
over
should
after
be,
the Masters, Carlos. What are you talking about, August?
basically. basically. But the thing is, you're really not, you're rewarding somebody who played the best last three tournaments. That's really what it is. Because if you get hot at the end, which we have seen plenty of times in this FedEx Cup format, it's really not really, you don't see all the effort pay off after you have been doing all year. I mean, even the second and third place, it's just because you did great in those last three tournaments. It wasn't really because you were the second best or the third best all year long.
They've really struggled with this over the years. It's been changed multiple times. And so the last few years, they've been on the staggered system where they give the number one player, he gets 10 under par head start. Xander Schauffele, who was ranked number two, he got 8 under par, and so on and so forth. And I think Colin Morikawa, who finished runner up in this thing, started out at 4 under. I think he was T6 at the beginning, and so he started 4 under. He shot 22 under for the week. He was the real winner of the tournament from just a score standpoint. Played really, really well. And you know how much I love Colin Morikawa. I was glued to the TV watching him play. He made very few mistakes. He was being outdriven by 30 to 60 yards on every hole. Scottie was out driving him that much. And still, Colin Morikawa was right there. There was a couple holes that he just couldn't get to because he's hitting maybe a 7-iron where Scottie's able to hit a wedge. And so the greens were firm, and it was really tough for Colin to even fit it in there in a lot of places. But I thought he played fantastic. Xander had a wonderful year. The two majors, he played well. Another takeaway is Ludwig Oberg. The guy's going to be a certifiable star for years to come. I love how he plays. I love how quick he plays. I love his swing. Love his attitude. We've had some other guys, Keegan Bradley, jump up and play, have a really good end of the year. I was talking to someone else earlier today about Keegan, and he was way down. What was ranked 230 or something like that? I mean, he was way down there. And you give him the captaincy of the Ryder Cup, and all of a sudden it perks him up. It just brings his whole attitude up. His confidence goes up. He says, "Man, I gotta be out there with these guys. I gotta play. I gotta be, I gotta practice. I gotta be ready to go." And he wins, and he does well in the FedEx Cup. Makes a bunch of money. Now he's on the President's Cup team, and it's just that is mind blowing to me that he does all this stuff in this short period of time. So I really, I'm not a big fan. I'm still not a big fan of the FedEx Cup playoffs. FedEx puts in a bunch of money to the tour, $70 million a year, whatever they put in. It's amazing what they do for the tour. I'm still not a big fan of this playoff thing, even though they've gone from 4 down to 3. I think that is better than the 4. The first one was just a non-event basically, and guys were skipping it. So it was fun to see him go to Castle Pines out in Colorado for the BMW, hitting the ball 400 and some yards because they're up there at altitude and the ball just flies forever. So that was kind of fun to watch. But I got one more question for you before we leave the playoffs. East Lake Country Club. Are you a fan of that place?
Now, I felt like they were playing, when I see the scores all the time, it's like this is a Corn Ferry Tour tournament. I mean, 20 some under, and I get it. Do you want to try to give everybody a scoring
You're
chance to
being
catch up?
blasphemous because East Lake is revered almost like Augusta National is being the home of Bobby Jones and all this stuff, right? Donald Ross.
I think Bobby Jones is right now retorting in his grave right now because of this thing of that scoring. If you compare the scoring in Augusta to what it is here, it is really a big difference. I mean, anyone can go low, and I like the tournament. I mean, if it would have been in its own, it would have been very interesting because if you see, Morikawa was the low score, but he actually won the tournament by 1 over Sahith Theegala, and then Scottie Scheffler was 2 back. So if you go and see, it would have been an incredible finish. It might have been different because if you see that Morikawa was actually the leader of the actual tournament, and it would have been a different thing, right? But I think, and I get it, you want to give everybody of those top 30 the chance to come back and try to win. But at the same time, it's just like it's too easy. It's too easy. So, and I'm not taking it on Scotty. I mean, he took advantage of it in the scoring and the way that the playoffs are. But hey, I just think it's just too easy for these guys to play there and score low.
You know, I'm a big Andrew Green fan. Of course, Donald Ross was the original designer, and Andrew Green just did the renovation there. It only took like a year or something. It was amazing that he was able to do it that fast. You know, I've interviewed Andrew Green, talked to him. He did Inverness at Toledo. Fantastic guy, great designer, a Donald Ross expert. If you've got a Donald Ross golf course, you want Andrew Green doing your renovation. Number one, the first hole is almost unplayable. The first hole for the week was 48 over par accumulative. The rest of the golf course was 250 under par. Okay. The rest of the golf course was gettable. The first hole, not so much. They need to do some changing. The way that green sets up on the hill, it's just not accessible coming in there. So they need to maybe change that, soften that up a little bit. But I'm not a big fan of East Lake for this either. Not a big fan of the event, but I don't have a better answer for him right now. So this is what we got. So, Carlos, anything else before we leave that?
No, it's been a great year. Great, congratulations to Scotty. Definitely, I think he cemented that he's the player of the year. With this, there's no way anyone else can argue that he wasn't, even with Sanders, two majors. I mean, Scotty's achievements are remarkable. I mean, nothing like he did. He was definitely from start to end the star of the PGA Tour.
The last time we talked about player of the year, you and I, it was after Xander's two major championship wins, and you're saying he's obviously the player of the year. And I said, wait a minute, not so fast. Scotty's got 6 wins plus, the gold medal. I mean, that's got to be worth something, right? Now I know the gold medal doesn't count to player of the year on the PGA Tour, but still 6 wins, including a Masters and the Players, that's pretty good stuff. I had Scotty as a player of the year even after Schauffele's two major championship wins, and he just confirmed it. And we both agreed that whatever happened in FedEx Cup playoffs, that would seal the player of the year status, and it did. Scotty made that statement very clear, very loud. I am the number one player. I am the player of the year. I am the best player in the world right now. Even without the LIV guys there, it's a good field. It was a good tournament. Scotty's a deserving winner. So,
Definitely
Carlos,
great. Not to argue. Oh my God, LIV versus PGA Tour. Actually, we were able to enjoy the PGA Tour at the end here.
thanks a lot for joining us and talking a little bit about the FedEx Cup and Scottie Scheffler's amazing year. Look forward to talking to you again down the road.
Great having. Thank you for having me. It's great always to be here with you. Thank you.